this episode, I was able to sit down with Gentry Chidester. Gentry is one of the leading sales closers in the country. He has helped his brother Tanner grow his business over $50 million in sales in the last few years, and has also helped so many people, not only around the country, but around the world, scale their business by fine-tuning their sales techniques so that they can close people on the call. In this episode, there is one question that I was really burning to ask.
For me, it's real fascinating to watch. Three brothers. What's the biggest hurdle you guys have had to overcome to make it synergistic?
Also in this, there is a lot of false beliefs that I didn't even realize I had that Gentry breaks down in live time that you will get to see, and hopefully will help you become a better closer with your sales so that you can scale your business.
You label that as like being aggressive, and I would label that as like
listen to find out. That's a good shift.
This was a really enjoyable conversation with Gentry that I believe will give you a lot of value. So let's get into it.
Yeah, I got to get you to come to the other side of the coast one day. It looks like SpongeBob's butthole.
Well, bro, I appreciate you being willing to come over here, and I'm glad we could do this.
Yeah, I think about the first time when we met. You probably already forgot. We were in the elevator. Just I don't know what I was saying, but you looked so confused. You're like, who is this dude?
Dude, I feel like when I'm traveling, that's just part of it, right? It's just like there's so much going on, and then there's the event where I know this is gonna sound bad, but like when you're not on Zoom like we normally are, and so you start seeing people in person, and you're like, wait, I know I see your name on Zoom. Like, because your name's on Zoom sometimes, not yours specifically, but like because you see people's names on Zoom and it like reminds you, when you see them in person, you're just like, I know the face, but I forget the name.
That's the best when you see people and they're just like, they're looking at you going, fuck, like they're just rapping through their head going, have I seen this person? I don't know, whatever. And then it's just like, you.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, when we went in the elevator, or like connected in the elevator, that's not what was going through my mind, but it was like the event and then travel and all that. So
yeah, because you're not from Miami.
No, I live in Seattle, man.
Oh shit!
Which is
different weather.
Yeah, different weather, different place, different vibe. So, and then on top of that, you were late. You were like an hour late. So
it's also late. And you know what's the worst part? I wasn't there the first day.
Exactly. So it's like you're late next day, and I'm like, wait, you're like going to the event, like it started yesterday, right?
But so the bad part was I actually didn't get any confirmation emails other than what size shirt I ordered. That's the only one I got. So in my calendar, I had the 21st, like the Friday and the Saturday.
Yep.
And then I got the WhatsApp message from Tanner, like to the group chat. Hey guys, we're at blah, blah, blah. And I messaged my coach, George, and I'm just like, what the fuck's he talking about? It's tomorrow. And he goes, no, dude, it's today. I'm like, well, I'm not making that because that's a 3-hour drive. So
yeah, it happens, man. But that's what I'm saying. Like when you travel, time is just different. And then on top of that, like me being from Seattle, it's 3 hours.
Oh, true that.
Yeah, it's 3 hours different. So it makes it, normally like when it's morning, it's dark, and like here 10 a.m. it's like bright and sunny. So
yeah, it's super sunny. Like, I mean, I moved here only like from Australia a year ago, just over a year, and you can't get away without wearing sunglasses. Like, it's like I was trying to film something yesterday, and like it's meant to be an emotional thing, and I'm like from the sun, I'm like, we're not using any of that shit.
Dude, about Australia, I feel like Australia is kind of like this, no?
It depends. So I'm from Sydney. If you go up north towards Queensland, Cairns and stuff like that, it's similar to here. Like they get hurricanes, they can get, we call summer up there wet season because it rains more.
Yeah.
But yeah, where I'm from in Sydney, it's more like North Carolina, according to my wife. That's the weather. But it's windy, dude. It's fucking windy.
Really?
Oh, dude, I'll take cold. I'll take snow over wind any day.
Snow over wind.
Is Seattle windy?
It's rainy, man. It's not windy. It just so like think of anywhere that snows a lot. Seattle just rains. So you see rain all the time. Like Seattle's a lot like London, I feel like.
Oh, you poor thing.
I know. I feel like a vampire when I'm there. So I travel. I mean, that's why I travel though, man. And that's like the best part of obviously working online. But like Seattle it's a cool vibe and everything, but it's not. It's definitely no Miami or Australia for sure.
Is Seattle where Chaz happened?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's my favorite story.
Dude.
That thing was the best. Because the fact that the whole thing they fought was, I mean, obviously this is a tangent, massive tangent, but the fact that everything they were fighting for, they slowly became. You know, like, we hate Trump because of this. And first thing we're going to do is build a wall in our area. That was my favorite part about it, like the whole pandemic, I think.
So I don't like live like in Seattle, like downtown, right? But I'm like, when that was all going on, I was like 30 minutes away.
Really? That close?
I mean, it seems that close, but it like...
Oh, it's not?
It didn't feel like that at all. So I had all these people like, dude, are you okay? Like, are your doors locked? Like, what's going on? And I was like, it's just another day, man. It's
Really?
crazy, like, how, like, the news or, like, things like that can make it seem so crazy. But, like, I was there, and it, like, I didn't notice
interesting.
anything, dude.
That was interesting to watch how it was like, you know, if you were in that area, it was like tough tits. You're on your own.
Yeah.
Like if you had a shop there, if you lived there, it was just like, fuck, sorry, bro.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like being in the middle of it, I had like acquaintances go down there and said it was nuts. So, like, yeah, you're right. If like there was a shop there, I mean, that sucked, you know, and it's like there's not much you could do. But if you just decided not to go there was like what you said, like a definite line that
There was
like,
a wall.
you didn't cross it, you were going to be okay, you know. But
Interesting.
it was a weird thing in that time for sure. That went on.
America's different, man. I mean, we have this joke in Australia. It's like when you hear just a dumb story, you could be like, really? And someone would be like, yeah, it's in blah, blah, blah. Like they name a state or whatever. I'm like, of course it is.
Yeah.
You know, whereas the sad thing was when I moved here, 3 weeks after my wife and I moved here, those crazy lockdowns happened in Australia. And I was over here going, what happened? When did we become the crazy ones? Like once I was on the other side of the world, I was like, what the
What is like when you're in Australia or like another country, like what is like the thought or feelings towards America, especially like over the last couple of years?
So it's like a mixed emotion, you know, like it's the land of opportunity, but it's also the land of fucking crazy people, you know. But the thing too is that like one, you've got a way bigger population. It's like our population in Australia, so our land mass is the same as North America with the population of Florida.
Jeez.
For perspective. So, I mean, also you guys are at like the forefront of so much technology, like, you know, news, videos, like phones and filming. Like there's a lot more opportunities to capture crazy people.
Right.
Also, just the biggest thing that we don't understand is the lawyer and medical culture here. They're the two biggest things where like, what, we don't get it in terms of like people suing someone over a lost suit for 3 weeks for $20 million. Like that, those we look at and we just like, yep, I need America.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, is it universal healthcare in Australia?
It's a blend. So it's a very good blend. So everyone chips in. Everyone chips in 2.5%. So yeah, if you're making more money, you chip in more. Yeah, you pay. But you all get the same. Like everyone gets it. It's not like here where it's. I don't mean, my limited knowledge is you got Obamacare or you have private health insurance. Yeah. Everyone has Medicare. So, and then if you want, you can get private as well on top of that to get the extra real good benefits.
Like bonuses.
And so, like, for example, I mean, being an ex-skateboarder, I would injure myself. I'd go to hospital. My mom she wouldn't be like, "You're okay?" Yes. Second statement was, "Don't tell them you have private healthcare." Got it, mom. And I'd go in, here's my Medicare, and I'd get my leg in a cast. I'd get follow-ups with physiotherapists and everything, all for free.
Jeez.
Yeah. And now if I told them I had private health, they then charge that, and then, you know, we'd have to pay a premium and shit.
Dang.
Everyone plays the game, rich or poor.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I do. If it was like that, like everyone, I think that's fair, you know, like 2.5% across the board, no matter what, then it makes it equal, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter, but.
I've never paid for a broken limb, an x-ray, an ultrasound. No, that's true. Never paid for that because my wife got them for free when she was pregnant in Australia.
Why did you guys move over here?
Not
that that's a bad thing, like welcome.
Yeah. Well, here's a funny story. I said, I've been saying since I was 15 because I grew up on skateboarding and like America's the mecca for that stuff. Since I was 15, I said I'd find an American woman, marry her and move here. It's just been one of those things. And then I go to Bali and met an American girl and told her to visit me in Australia. Like, you know, because if you're this far, I hear so many people say, I want to go to Australia, but they never do.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, you're a 5-hour flight. Fly over. She was like, all right. And then she never left. And then we got married, then moved here, like during COVID. 6 months pregnant, had to ask my country for permission to leave, which was weird. Not to enter, to leave. Had to prove to him I wasn't coming back for at least 3 to 6 months. And yeah, flew here, started a family, started a new life, and started my own business in the space of 3 months. And knew 0 people. So that was the other thing too. It's like, oh, cool. I don't even have people that can vouch for me. And I'm starting to network and do all this stuff and while starting a family. So it's been wild. And then the hurricane came through and fucking 13 feet of water came through our area.
Oh my gosh, bro.
It's been a year, dude.
Why did you guys move? Because of the pandemic?
Well, she's much closer to her family than I am to mine. And she wants more, like, you know, being a mum, you know, you want support from your parents as well. So, and also just, I mean, one of my best friends from high school who lived in Cali for a decade through his 20s, even he was like, dude, honestly, after living there, he goes, your personality fits America more than Australia. And he goes, you'll love it. And I was like, okay, fair enough. So far, I love it. So minus the hurricane.
Jeez.
But yeah, it's been wild. How, I've got to actually, there's a very interesting question. Working with family can be the best or the worst thing. And when I mean, obviously I followed Tanner first and then followed you. And then there's also Benson. It's for me, it's real fascinating to watch 3 brothers. And like I see like with Logan Paul and Jake Paul, like they are the best thing. They started off as the worst thing, but also the best thing. Also, I got friends who are terrible when they work with their family.
Yeah.
It seems like you guys, I mean, yes, I'm assuming there's going to be ups and downs for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But what's the biggest hurdle you guys have had to overcome to make it synergistic?
That's a good question, man. I mean, so I'm just going to answer from my perspective. Like, we're all 3 like very similar in like all the ways we need to be, but then we're all very different, right? So, you know, like Tanner, he was like a bachelor, you know, in Miami for a little bit until he found, you know, his awesome girlfriend and settling down a little bit. But then like I got married when I was 21. Benson got married a little like 25, but still young, like in the grand scheme of things. And I think just like the ambition level like is all high, but like comparative to like each one of us, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, dude, like me and Tanner, we've absolutely clashed and had like knockout dragouts for sure. But like, dude, honestly, one of the things that we were taught at a young age and has been instilled in us is just like the concept of like high yield, low maintenance, right? So like, like watching out for other people and like taking care of them and like kind of fitting where people need you to fit, but then like not requiring a lot like in return, if you will. So I think that's what happened. Like when Tanner initially started out, like Benson and I just saw the areas that like he needed help, and then we figured it out. Like we didn't require a ton of like coaching or feedback, which anyone knows starting out in a business, man, like hiring, firing, training people is like one of the hardest things and is ultimately like what keeps businesses from growing. So in that fact, that's where we fit really well. But then, you know, that's, there was growth, man. And I think that's like the one thing is people are like, oh man, like y'all are brothers, like, you know, and ultimately I know it sounds cliche, but it's just like, we don't quit and we don't let like disagreements tear everything apart. And so it's what moved us forward. But yeah, I mean, it's been a journey, dude, just like anything else. So it's been fun though, man. Like, I mean, I forget, to be honest, like I forget that they're my brothers at times, and like not
really,
I don't want that to sound bad, but like people are like, man, it's so cool, like you do business with your brothers, and it's like, oh yeah, like they are my brothers. Like that's true. So you know, I mean, we honestly too, man, like especially me, I'm the youngest of the boys, so like it's gonna sound weird, but like we weren't super close when we started together, and I think that's like something that's actually helped us is like we've gotten closer, but it's like been the business that's binded us together.
That makes sense because, you know, you're spending a lot more time together now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like we weren't like super close as far as like, who are you dating? Or like, we didn't talk about that stuff. So like,
Really, even that?
yeah, like, yeah, like to be honest, you know, Tanner gets mad at me to this day, but like when my wife got pregnant, like he was the last person to find out, you know? So
Really?
I think in that sense, because we weren't like so in like wrapped up in our personal lives, that it made it easy to like be like, okay, business, like put that first, and then like secondary will be the personal stuff, because that's we weren't so wrapped up in it. And again, like it's just kind of the dynamic of like how we were raised in like a very just like, I mean, I'm not gonna say we weren't raised in like a loving household, but not like, my wife, her family comes from Colombia, dude, and I make a joke. I'm like, her parents knows when she gets a cold, like, and they're calling her like 10 times a day, you know, which like, I'm like, oh, dude, that's awesome. But like, I make a joke. I'm like, dude, I'm one of 7 and my parents don't even know I left the house yet. Like,
Yeah.
And that's just the reality. Like, there were so many of us, dude. It's like, you got to learn to fend for yourself a little bit. So that's what I would say. But I mean, we're all still kind of young too. So we're not all like set in our ways, and we're all willing to kind of, you know, change and be fluid, which is ultimately like being willing to communicate and change is the biggest thing, obviously. And we hear it all the time, but it's another thing to do it.
Yeah, because that's the biggest battle I'm having is I want to build, I mean, you need a team, obviously. When you haven't got the capital to pay, to buy, I guess it's bad terminology, but you're buying people because you're paying a salary.
Right.
I'm not at that level yet, but I know, like, for me, and this is, I guess this is for a lot of people, I know the power of having like a group and trying to find that group and trying to figure out ways in which I can go in and give value. Because also the other thing too, from a marketing perspective, is people like characters. And the thing is, like, think of your favorite television show. It's not one person talking to you the whole time. You're locked in because you've got this character and these people around and the way they work together.
Right.
That's why you're connected to that TV show. And the biggest thing with marketing, what I do with my clients is, I'm like, I don't give a fuck about just you, because I'm going to go on your page and I'm bored. I'm not going to come into your world.
Yeah.
What are the other employees and stuff, and how you put them around to pepper in and build this environment for people to get sucked into. And now they're like, fuck, I want to be part of that, because I want to be friends with Joe. I want to be friends with, you know, Karen in accounting.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part I'm trying to build now, which is I'm figuring it out now with, like, I use my clients and I'm building that ecosystem. The podcast was another thing.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you get people on and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, that person's in your stratosphere. I'm like, I had a 2-hour conversation with them. Like, I don't know much. But yeah, so you guys all started out the hustler. You guys, I guess you came on board and it was in a way similar to like 100% commission in a way, because I'm guessing, because you guys are just like, you know what, Tanner, you're doing something cool. Here's where you can improve, or here's some ideas we've got. And you were just like, let's go ride with you. Is that how it sort of started?
Yeah, I mean, not technically, dude. Like, what a lot of people don't know is I was working 2 jobs when I was working with Tanner. So like, I was.
But I mean, for the EliteCEOs section of it, it was like you were coming in to help.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's what it was, is like, and this is just for like any business owner and like building a team, is like when you can't afford like top dollar or like the best people, you have to sell them on the vision. Like what you were just saying, like you have to let them into your world a little bit and like sell them on the upside, rather than just focus on like the narrow-mindedness or the short side. So when I started with Tanner, like I was working 2 jobs and then I was working with Tanner and getting like I actually started as like a coach.
And you had a family as well.
Yeah, I had like a brand new baby, you know, a brand new wife, pretty much.
Brand new. I've never heard it talk that. Fresh.
I mean, it was fresh, man, for sure. And so like I was hungry for it, and I was willing, you know, the number one thing like that I pride myself in is like being willing to work hard.
Yeah.
And so then what happened is when Tanner connected with me, or like kind of presented me with the opportunity, I was like, oh dude, like I'm working two jobs right now. So like, if I can get to 1 and like make the same or be better, like heck yeah. And so, I mean, dude, there was reservations for sure because like I didn't know everything. That's the reality. But I saw like the opportunity and the upside. So that's kind of where it started with us. And then what I was saying, like for other business owners is like, that's how you can get good people though, is like you get them to buy into the vision.
Yeah.
And then you set proper expectations with them. Like that's the thing too, is Tanner like was one thing I've always appreciated about him. And when we got in business together, like, dude, he's so honest, like honest almost to a fault sometimes, where like he's like so honest, like, bro, like don't tell people that, you know, like like so honest, which made like clear expectations where he's like, dude, like I don't know, but it would be like 6 to 12 months. And then like when 6 months came around, like exactly what he said is exactly what happened. It wasn't like better, but it wasn't like any worse than what he had really painted for me. And then like once I got in full time, it turned into like 100% commission because I was on the sales side. So
yeah.
I bet on myself in that way, but then it also benefited Tanner in the sense where like he didn't owe me anything except what I worked for.
Yeah.
Right. And so any good salesperson at the end of the day, like should be able to bet on themselves and produce. And so it was a win-win for both of us. And obviously has gotten us to this point now where, you know, we travel, we go to different places, and we're not just stuck, you know, where we started. But again, it wasn't all fun and games when I started, dude. Like it was a grind. It was a grind for sure. Yeah.
Cause you were doing like your organic outreach. Is that what you started with?
Yeah. So I was doing like messaging, and then I was doing some coaching like with clients as well.
Oh, okay.
Working with them. And so it was like, I love coaching for sure, but I just like kind of that, like more of the sales and marketing aspect of it. And so what ended up happening, and again, this is like just the reality of things, is Tanner let Benson decide what he wanted to do. So he's like, Benson, do you want to do full-time coaching or do you want to do full-time sales? And so Benson was like, oh yeah, I'll do full-time coaching, which I wanted to do sales. So like right when he picked that, I was like, perfect. Like I don't know if I had been asked to do coaching like full-time for EliteCEOs, if I would have wanted to do it, to be very honest. Like sales was my passion, meeting new people, and like the constant change in your day. Like I like kind of that up-tempo speed where you get to meet new people every day rather than like the same faces for 12 months or 6 months or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, again, I love coaching, but I love sales more.
Yeah, I can understand that. There's definitely big nuanced differences, because it's weird. I'm like a hybrid of the two. I love the sales. I love the meeting, like the storytelling, the marketing sides as well.
Yeah.
But there's also something about that patience, and then seeing like, you know what that person has to do 6 months from now, but you're only telling them 1 month. Yeah. And then that sort of like strategy and seeing it out, like play out. And then you're just like, fuck yeah. Because it requires a patience that I think I never really had. And I'm trying to learn that, because if you can teach it into other people, it then resonates into you. Because, obviously when like the sales half of me is like, fuck this, it has to be now. So I can understand that too, because it's so your favorite part is like meeting new people, or what's the part that's about sales? Or is it like you can set a quantifiable goal?
No, it's the same thing that you just said, but it's in a shorter amount of time, right? So like sales, depending on what you're selling, right? Some sales can take longer to process, but like in the digital marketing world, in the like coaching world itself, you typically have like 1 to hour and a half meetings, right? So in like 60 minutes, you're seeing if you can, like, I don't want to say convince, because definitely, that's part of it, but like you're seeing if you can change someone's beliefs and perspective from where they start the call to like where they end the call. Because that's all sales really is it's changing people's beliefs in order to see like what you're like, believe in what you're offering them, or just see what you're offering them in the light that gets them to their end goal. Right? So it's like this like intense 60-90 minute like all out sprint to see if you can change someone's like behavior, beliefs, and vision, versus like, again, not that this is bad or like that I don't enjoy it. I think it's more fulfilling in a coaching role where like 6 months you finally have your client get a breakthrough and their life has changed forever. That's definitely more fulfilling. But like the excitement of that like 60, 90 minutes seeing if you can change someone is what I loved about it. And again, like I was younger, right? I was 20 when I started. So as you mature a little bit, then you start to see like, yeah, maybe I don't want to like be in these 60-minute sprints for the rest of my life or something like that. But that's what I've always loved about it, and what, especially at the beginning, I was like all for sure.
Yeah. So with people doing sales, because right now, I mean, I don't know how long I'm into the course at the moment, but I know that 5 weeks into it, my house got hit by a hurricane and it took out 4 weeks. So I was like, fuck. But I still had a record month with half of it being taken out outside of, the hurricane. Because I've been focusing on, it's like Iraq down there. Like you see the videos, you don't connect with them at all. But it's funny because it was more like my current clients just tripled down. But there was something that was, one thing I noticed with like courses when people do stuff or mentorships or stuff like EliteCEOs, you can either look at the things you thought you were going to get and then be angry, or you can look at the things that you didn't even notice. Like just the hustle part of it. Mine's very different because I'm, getting people to do, like I do like the content, the strategy and stuff. Yeah. It's a lot slower process. It's not like I've got to get them warm to it, especially Southwest Florida. Like they don't get it, which is like my opportunity because it's very easy to stick out. But I know that there was a book that Tanner posted about, it was like gap selling. That thing literally changed how I viewed sales, because I was good at listening, but that just turned the dial up of how much I listened after that. Where it was like, and then I record the calls and I look back at them and I'm like, dude, I didn't even hear that person say that. And then you're like, all right, add that to the gap of what they're wanting to achieve. Here's how I start finding that emotional part of it. Outside of that book, is there any other ones that you were like, you know what, this shifted how you thought about selling or learned techniques that helped?
Yeah, for sure. Like my two favorite sales books, and again, this is just for me. The first one's Alter Ego, which isn't even really a sales book. It's more of like a technique. The author's Todd Herman. He's actually a life coach in Canada. And then my second one is by Grant Cardone. It's called The Closer Survival Guide. And so Alter Ego, like you just have to read it to understand. I won't try to explain it because I can't do it justice. But it's an amazing book, and it gets you to see yourself differently, right, in terms of sales. And then also Grant Cardone's book, The Closer Survival Guide. It also just, my favorite thing about the book is just more of like the mantle that Grant Cardone talks about, like a salesperson or a closer taking on versus just seeing yourself as like a salesperson, right? Like you're someone who can change this person's life. And if you really believe in like your product or service, like why wouldn't you try to like do everything in your possible power to like get that person to take the step over?
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense.
So those are two books that I read early on, like in my sales, let's say, career. And it just like kind of what you just said, like just felt like I had turned the page or like jumped into this other zone that I was like, man, like this is what it takes to do this. So those are the two that I really love.
Yeah. Because that's one thing I'm trying, like listening to Tanner talk on last Friday, how he talks in like his mock calls. I was like, damn, that's aggressive. But it was interesting to see it because it was funny because I had a call after, and I was pushing a lot harder than I normally would. And it was funny because you could see the guys going, and I'm going to follow up and be even more aggressive because I know now. But I again, it's those little things that, you don't realize that you're going to get when you start into something. You just think, oh, I'm going to do this and make all this money.
Yeah. And on top of that, man, it's just like, what I've realized is a lot of things that like we do or like we just label them, right? So like you label that as like being aggressive, and I would label that as like really caring. You know what I mean? And like when you start and that's what like even those books really talk about. Like when you start labeling things more in like a positive way or like in a more genuine way, it makes it easier to do it versus like, dude, no one wants to be like aggressive on a sales call. Like it's uncomfortable, you know? So that's something as well. Like when you're doing sales and when you're meeting with people, it's just like, it's again, easy to say. It's one thing to like internalize it and then have that be the first thought that comes to your mind rather than like, oh, I'm being aggressive. It's like, no, I'm like really caring about this person. I know I can help them. So I'm gonna try to get them to like, again, step over that line to do whatever it is, you know, the conversation's about.
That's a good shift. That's a good point. Because I think, I mean, like, obviously when I look at Grant Cardone, he's so funny. Like some of his calls, they're just like, you seriously gonna lose this over $100? And then I'm just like, you know what? That's actually a good point. I'm just, you know, sometimes when you're not used to that, because you need that little bit of a fighter in you, I guess, to be a bit of a closer. Yeah,
I mean, like there's a video of Grant Cardone on YouTube where it's like, I want to say it's like, can you be a millionaire? Like, can you become a billionaire in 30 days? Something like that. And he's like, they give you a certain amount of cash. I think it's like $10,000 to get started.
Yeah.
And he goes out to like buy this car. And in the interview, he's like, oh, I'm going to negotiate this guy like all the way down to his last dollar. And he meets the guy and the guy's like, I want $3,500. And he's like, I can do $2,700. The guy's like, no, 35. And Grant Cardone's like, okay. And he pays the guy like 35. And I love Grant Cardone. He's like one of my favorite entrepreneurs. But again, like, it's just all labels, man. And at the end of the day, no one closes every sales call they get on. No one closes every deal that they get involved with.
Yeah.
I think that's, again, just like linking back to your purpose. And at the end of the day, like when you watch like maybe a video of like Grant Cardone closing a deal versus like that, it's just like he didn't care as much about like getting the car at $2,700 as he does about closing $100,000, $2 million real estate deal.
Yeah.
So again, it's just like, rather than, not saying everything that you say is like aggressive or assertive is caring, but like the majority of it really is. And so when you're on a call and someone's like, oh, I feel like you're being aggressive, like the number one thing that I do is I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry. Like I'm definitely not trying to be aggressive. If like I'm coming off that way, it's really just because I care. So please don't mistake like my caring about you and like caring about what we can do as aggression. And that just totally gets them to like snap back into like what we're on the call about, rather than, you know, using that or like getting defensive and just trying to run off the call in the first place.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, it's funny because now that we're speaking this through, I'm thinking about when I used to be a personal trainer back in Sydney, and I was the same thing. It was like the different things where it's like, you know, people go, oh, you know, I'm just really tired with 4 kids. And I'm just like, look, I get it. I don't know what it's like to have 4 kids, but to say you can't find 5 minutes. I'm setting you a goal to do 5 minutes of exercise a day. That's all. We want to get the habit going. The fact you're finding those excuses means you're bullshitting yourself. Which is funny because then they went to another person going, he was really rude. But it's true. I'm not wrong. You know, I'm like, just do a fucking little bit. So now I have to shift that when I'm doing the sales calls. And that'll help a lot. Yeah.
It's the same thing, man. But the reality is what you just said too, is like, just because you relabel it doesn't mean that other person's going to take that label. So they're still going to be like, oh, you're a jerk. And it's just like, that's why you have to be committed to the label, if you will, or like whatever you redefine your definitions of like being aggressive or is that caring to you or and then that's the thing too, right? Like is some of what I've heard people like Grant Cardone or Jordan Belfort or you name it, right? I don't necessarily agree with that. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but what you do have to do is decide on something, right? Like you do have to commit to something, and then once you commit to it, stick to it, just like a workout plan, right? It's the same exact thing. Versus like in sales, people are like, oh, I didn't want to be aggressive. It's just like, it's like saying, oh, I was too tired. So
I like being broke.
Yeah, exactly, right? So
it's because there's the other book that one of the girls mentioned it on Friday, Never Split the Difference.
Yeah.
Bruh, that one as well. It's like, it's funny how, and this is, so I've been working on the listening component, like gap selling, Never Split the Difference.
Yep.
Those in terms of like the ability to gain information has been great. And now, like, again, talking to you now, it seems like the next step for me is to do that listening. And then once I know what I'm hearing, step forward instead of pulling back? Because that sounds like that's the thing that's lacking.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head though. Like the number one thing in sales, besides like genuinely like being convicted in what you're selling and then like caring about the person, is listening. And again, it's like, it's such a simple thing, and so many people are probably listening to this and they're like, oh yeah. But it's one thing to like listen, and it's another thing to do it and then actually like be good at it. And so that's like the thing, is just like truly listening, and listening to understand, not listening to respond, like especially in sales. And that's like, understanding really comes from like genuinely hearing someone and then trying to understand their point of view. That was like the number one thing that will make a difference for sure.
Yeah, podcasting made that for me. No joke. Like, actually, you're a creative guy, Alexis. Yeah. So he did a post recently, this is hilarious, by the way. So I start your EliteCEOs. I've been talking to him anyway, because I'm all, like, even before joining the group, I was always on Instagram networking to find people. And that's like, this just made me ramp that up even more. But I'm DMing this dude, you know, like, we're going to get on the podcast eventually, just because shit keeps not lining up. And then he posts a thing going, throwback to Tanner. And I'm like, how do you know Tanner? He's like, I'm a creative director with him like way back. And I was just like, get the fuck out of here, small world.
Yeah, man. How about that?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But he did a post as well where he used to podcast 5 years ago. And he said the biggest thing he learned was how to listen. And I was like, dude, I tell everyone that. Film yourself and watch it externally. It's the biggest lesson you can get. That's why I love watching back the sales calls. Because it's like, I watch them like, fuck, I jumped in too early. Shit, he said this and I didn't, this went straight over me. And that's that's the pain point that I need to hit.
Yeah.
And so learning that externally, it's so weird. Like it's like you're looking at yourself, but you're not. And then shit you think you've said where you're like, like the podcast, I had one guy where I was like, I just don't think he liked me. And then I'm editing it through and I'm just like, he's laughing at my jokes. Like either what am I seeing? Like, what am I seeing in reality?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I'm a big advocate for film yourself and then watch it, because it's a fast life lesson.
Yeah, man. It's like your game film, right? And that's like, that's the biggest thing, is like, people don't do it because it's uncomfortable, man. I mean, while you're talking, like, I don't know why, but I bit my lip and I'm like, oh, that's gonna look weird. Like, that's gonna look
I didn't notice it. I don't think
that's gonna look so weird.
Everyone's gonna rewind now.
Exactly. I was like, what am I doing? But yeah, I mean, just staying in the present moment, man. And I think that's like what I'm talking about, though. Like when you're thinking about listening, you're not really listening. Like that's
true.
That's like the crazy thing. Like when you're listening, it's just like, it's just flowing, and like you're like really internalizing it. And then you can, when you need to, come from like a place of empathy, like really seeing that person's point of view rather than just like trying to pretend you get their point of view. And so I think a lot of people who like say like they're really good at listening think they're listening, and like I'm guilty of that. Like that's like the barrier between like average salespeople and then like really, really good salespeople who can like lock into that all the time. Or just like good communicators in general, right? Like some of the best communicators just listen.
Is there a train around here?
I guess so.
I
mean,
that.
I'm not from here, dude, so I just go with the flow. But it sounds like it for sure.
I don't even know where that is.
Yeah, I know. It's like the most random thing ever.
In the middle of Miami. Well, we learned something else today.
There you go. Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, but no, listening it's hard too, because I don't know if you're the same, but sometimes you're so excited to be understood that it's that excitement to get the information out. You're like, yeah, and blah, blah, blah. When it's just like, you probably haven't noticed it, and now everyone's going to rewind and watch this too. But there's a lot of moments that I go to interject and I'll take an extra breath. This happens in every single conversation I do, because it's like there's that excitement where it's like, I want to agree with you. And I go, nope, boom, pull it back and let that person keep talking. And yeah, that was another technique where I was like, dude, the second I'm like, and
yeah, like just ready to just like pounce on the information.
Yeah.
Had you always been like someone who like likes communicating with people? I know you mentioned you've done like skateboarding in the past, or like.
So communicate. I mean, it's probably like the biggest thing would be it's like everyone, they want to be understood, and so the communication part is like always wanted to be understood. Now it took a long time to shift that, where it was like the best way to be understood is to understand. Whereas it was usually like, I mean, my poor wife puts up, she's got the old Blake still, where like I call her, I'm like, how you going? She, yeah, I'm good. Oh my gosh, so this happened today, blah, 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 blah. And she's like she is a good soundboard. So shout out to my wife, love you. But it is, I think it's that, what is it? It's the thing of, in pursuit of like my own narcissism, if that makes sense. I know I've got a bad word, but it's like, you know, people want to be heard, seen, all that sort of stuff. That it was funny. I had this like shift a while back where it was like, fuck, people don't really like me. Why? And I got a saying of, you know, meet 1,000 arseholes, maybe you're the arsehole. And that was like when I was around 24, and so grew the shift across the last decade, which was, how do I become a better person people want to be around? And that's what ends up being, all right, listen, communicate, engage. And so that's why there's that, I guess, that obsession with communication. If that answers your question.
Yeah.
It all comes from insecurity. Like, I guess, like most of our strengths.
Yeah, I mean, man, some of the most successful people have the most insecurities. I think that's what makes them get so great at like those natural skills. Like,
yeah,
that makes perfect sense. While you're saying that though, like about your wife, I was thinking about my wife. I was like, yeah, she's heard me talk about listening. She's like, this guy sucks. Like, because I listen all day long, and so then I get out of the office and it's like, my ears are toasted, man.
And it's I don't know if you're the same. My poor wife, I'll have like so yesterday, for example, I'm like psychoanalyzing. I'm like, all right, am I? And I go to her, I'm like, I know this is me having a momentary I want to quit moment, so let me just talk this out. I don't think doing this route's a good route. I think I need to jump to fitness because I'm good at that and I'll be able to do boom, boom, boom. And then, you know, we're having this conversation. She's just like, really? And I go, I know that I'm not going to do this, but I just need to get it out. And then like, you know, at the end of that day, I made another sale. And I'm like, no, I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
But the poor thing, like she hears every single business decision, but I always psychoanalyze it. I'm like, all right, this is what I think I'm doing mentally. So hear me out. And then she does the same thing too. She goes like, you know, being a man, men always want to fix shit. You know, like here's a problem, here's what you do. She now prefaces it going, I don't want a solution, I just want you to listen. I'm like, fuck, this is going to be hard, but okay.
Yeah, you just sit there. Yeah. I mean, with like your wife, dude, do you talk like a lot about business with her?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like everything.
It's all like, well, so like even down to the thing of like a house. Like we still live in my in-laws' house because I mean, since we moved here, I like the timeline has been like I moved here knowing no one, not much of an income. Now I'm at that point, but I need to have 2 years of income before I can get anything. But also the insurance rate has more than doubled. The housing prices have more than doubled.
Yeah, like quadrupled.
Oh, and so I'm looking, I'll go to her, I'm like, dude, if I moved here 3 years prior, you know, we'd be in like what I can afford now. We would be in the equivalent of like on Southwest Florida, $1 million home. And I'd be paying fuck all in payments. Now we're looking at freaking $300,000, which is in Southwest Florida now. It's like, it's like we're looking at tiny homes as the options.
Yeah, which is crazy though, dude, man.
So
like
insane.
300,000.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like
Yeah.
my parents, dude, they bought their house for like 300 grand, and it's like 4,000 square feet, right? But it's in Houston, right? So it hasn't appreciated at all. That house anywhere else, man, is like buku bugs. It's crazy the way things have changed in such a fast time.
Yeah.
Like what you were just saying, like you moved here and it's like everything's normal. 3 months later, boom. Like
it was insane.
Crazy.
Well, I was looking at my friend's house and I go to Stace. I'm like, do you know that house that's now like $500,000? When that person bought it in mid 2020, the insurance rate, the interest rate was 3%. I go, that home loan they're paying is like $750 to $900 a month, and they're charging $2.5 to $3 grand in rent. why would you ever sell that? I go to her, I'm like, that little amount of money, I'm like, I wouldn't give a shit. Like, let's move out. Who cares? But now it's like, us looking at the house is like back to the point of business. Even purchasing a house for me, I'm like, no, this has to be a business decision because in 3-4 years, you're probably going to want to move. So we need to buy strategically, have a plan for 3 years later where we can either turn it into a profitable rental or an Airbnb. So location, all these things go into play. And then how can we build, maybe it's a tiny home, make it a novelty so that we can drag more people in and attract them when we decide to make it an Airbnb. So like every life decision is a fucking business decision. She's just like, no, Blake, I want this. And I'm like, don't care. It doesn't fit with the plan.
I know.
Are you the same? Not to that extreme.
Dude, honestly, I envy like a lot of my friends and stuff that do talk to their wives about everything. Mine definitely like wants me to, and she's the best, you know. So love you, wife. But dude, like for me, I just like to compartmentalize my life. Like, so I have an office, and when I leave that office, I don't want to talk about like anything that went on there anymore because I just want to be in the moment. Like, I just want to be in the present moment, like with my wife and kid. And because I love work and I work so much, it's like I don't want that to be like the only like thing that I think about or talk about when I'm around them, right? So it's not like I don't talk to her at all about work. Like, we definitely talk about work, but like if I've had a terrible day, I usually just like don't tell her, and then she'll kind of figure it out on her own.
Do you know how smart of an idea that is, though? Like, Stacey's been so worried that we're failing. I'm like, dude, I'm just doing terrible, blah, blah. Then she looked at like how much I brought in. She's like, what the are you talking about? Like, it's just so funny to think.
Yeah, I think it's not that I don't communicate, because I definitely do. It's just like on like some of the things that go on, like I just will keep to myself. And if my wife asks, like I'll definitely tell her. But it's like when I go out, I try to like I said, get in the present moment and then talk about like other things, because to be honest, it just keeps me from getting so short-sighted, you know, like so easy what you're just saying. Like, you have one bad day and it feels like your whole month has just like sucked.
Well, that's why I track my numbers.
Yeah.
Because tracking the numbers is what keeps me, and this is what I think a lot of people fail with, is they're like, oh, I'm killing it. And I'm like, you're going backwards $4,000 a month, dude, you know? And like you'll find some days you're like, oh dude, I suck at this, and you're like, hold on. You look back at the month, you're like, that was my best month ever. What happened? And then the reverse, I'm killing it. And then you like look at your bank account, you're like, yeesh.
Where did it all go? Yeah. It's crazy, man. I mean, just being here in Miami, like where I like normally live, like over in Washington, and then being here is like living below your means, man. Like, again, I don't know these people personally, but it's just like you look around and you're like, man, average income in America is like, let's say 75.
I think it's 54.
Well, we'll be generous. So let's say it's like 94. It's like, there's no way like everyone here is doing that. And so, you know, that's one thing too, man, is like, again, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. It's just like labeling, but also just like realizing, staying in the moment of where you're at. So that doesn't happen. I mean, that's just gonna ruin you, dude.
It's tricky. It's like, I mean, we're surrounded by how much, I guess people make it look like it's easy too. And if you haven't been alongside, like, I'm sure you boys get fucking, oh, you guys are living the life, it's easy. And it's like, dude, you don't know the grinding that's going on the back end.
Yeah.
You know? And I think I would love people to sit next to, like, just those ones that, what is it? It's like people will put their own work ethic on your results. And that's why they're always going, it's easy, because I could do that. But then it's the same as fitness. Oh, it's genetics. It's a very easy cop out. You know, like, you know, you've got a six pack because you were born that way, not because you went to the gym every fucking day for 15 years and, you know, ate healthy. Have you ever had people where they're just like, I'm sure like even when they came into Elite CEOs, I was probably one of them actually, where I was just like, all right, cool, this will work, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, fuck, like messaging that many people and everything. Have you had people just be like, whoa, this is too much for me?
Yeah, man. I mean, like, I think, I don't want to say everyone, but I mean, dude, that's like a normal feeling. It's what you just said. Like, it's a lot. Like, starting a business is hard. That's why less than 5% of people in the U.S. do it, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing too, though, right? Like, when something's hard, again, it's a label. But then on top of that, it's like, yeah, it's going to be hard. Like,
So talking about labels, I changed the word hard to challenging every time.
Yeah.
Even with like exercise, people are like, man, this is hard. I'm like, no, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Because a challenge you can overcome.
Yeah. And it's like, on top of that, man, like, what we even talk about to people, like, when you come in and you're feeling that way, just like focus on like one day. And then if one day is too much, like just focus on the hour or what have you. But yeah, I mean, then tracking things, right? Like it's, that's when you kind of look at it that way. It's like that many people. It's like, okay, break it down, do 10 an hour.
Yeah.
Right. But if you do 8 hours and you do 10 messages, there's 80 messages as an example, if that's something you have to do. So yeah, I mean, it's normal. I think people are naturally overwhelmed because starting a business is hard, but then like the goal is to just break it down in bite-sized pieces. And then if you look at it that way, you can get to the next hour, right? Or the next 2 hours or what have you. And dude, for me, like that's been a huge part of what you were just saying. Like, dude, I was working 3 jobs when I started, you know, like
What were the jobs?
Yeah, I was doing like a call center. I was doing like roofing, and then I was doing like the messaging and.
That's a spread.
Yeah, it was a spread. And if I had to like give unsolicited advice, here you go. Like it's one of the greatest things I've ever done because in sales, because I've done so much, or like done manual labor, I've done, call centers, like those types of things. I've done solar. It allows me to be like universal to who I'm talking to, and also just understand when I talk to someone who's like, oh, I come from like a construction background. I know exactly, what that field is like. I was going to say I know exactly what they're feeling, and that's not true, but I could have a good guess at typically what's going on. And then when they start to say certain things that I pick up on, it's like, yeah, I've know what that feeling is like. I've been there. Right. So dude, yeah, it was a ton. Like it was so hard. I barely saw my wife and kid for I probably started that I'd started before, but probably carried on once we had our son, probably an additional 8 months.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like anytime you look at someone, it's good to get context of like the full story or like the full picture versus just like one clip of 2 guys in Miami that are cracking up where we probably have like over the past 2 months probably had both gone in our closet and cried one time or something.
Oh, yeah. It's been a wild fucking month. I haven't cried. I deal with fists. So it's the punching bag.
Okay, so you punched the wall once or twice.
Not the wall.
The punching bag.
Definitely, I like my knuckles still working. I say that and I just realized I got cuts on them, not from the wall. But it's true. It's oh shit, I had another question. It's gone. If you need to go, by the way, you can say wrap it up because I know you're a busy man.
Yeah, if we're good, like let's wrap it up here.
Yeah, wrap it up. Cool. Yeah, you're a busy man.
Unless you have other questions, like a few others.
It's not coming to my brain, so I just want to keep the flow going. So
no, yeah.
We're good. No,
dude, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on, dude.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate you setting aside the time. If people want to reach out, I'll put your description and stuff in there. I'll put your details in the description. Reach out. I do Elite CEOs as well. Really cool. They grind you if you want.
Yeah, dude, we appreciate it. And it's been a blast, dude. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks, man. And make sure to subscribe, guys. Always got cool people. Bye.
Dude, thank you, bro.
Oh, thank you.
That was awesome. Like when we started, I was like, oh shit, we're starting. I like the way you did that.